Hi everyone, Paul Morbid of Morbid Team Entertainment and Bolex Repair Philippines. Recently I have been receiving a lot of questions about VCRs used in movie making and the videotapes that are damaged and or the magnetic film inside. Okay, so we're going to address some of that, especially with the VHS tapes. Alright, so what you want to do first is check your basics. What you can do is this little button right here, when you can, by my pencil eraser, you can take your finger and push that in. You can check the magnetic film inside. Just press it, flip this protective door back, and check the magnetic film. Okay, so if it seems just like this, apart from some of the dust and dirt on this tape that I just don't use, it should be fine. Okay, this is good. But if you have some, and I'll create some damage here, if you have what's called creasing, like something like this or worse, going all the way across the tape, you see that? That's damaging. It's going to create audio problems and severe video problems. It cannot be repaired. The only way to repair it is dismantle the entire black shell, and the black shell is this. Okay, take a pair of scissors, trim that out, and repair it. If you have the footage on another tape, you can today you can have some software and fade in and fade out with the software from the other tape with the other footage on it that's good, and put it into this one. Okay, is what you can do. Alright, but in the meantime, you want to go ahead and check your tape all the way through on the inside to see if it's creased, or if it has mold on it, to clean it off. If it has a lot of mold, you're going to have a complete damaged tape in there. Alright, so how do you do that? Well, you have to do it manually. I used to work in one of these places back in the day for years before I started my electronics VCR repair business back in the day. So take yourself a razor, and this comes in half, so you have to cut it just like this. If you have a videotape that actually has a film on it that you love, what you can do is this. You have to take, whoops, you have to take a hair dryer to it, heat it off the label, and then apply it back on with glue later. Alright? That is what has to be done. Alright, so the next step is what has to be done is to remove the screws. You have Phillips screws in the later models of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is where you have them. Okay, so we're going to zoom in a touch. Alright, and we're going to get started on that. Center one. Just remove that. Alright, and each time you remove a screw like this, hold the cassette down, because in this position you do not want to separate the shell. Alright, you have to flip it over in order for that to happen, otherwise all the internal workings will spill out everywhere, unless you have the knowledge of putting all those small parts back together, you're going to have a problem. A much larger problem than you had before. This is even if you want to go that far in what we're doing right here. Alright, so I got this one in the corner. And the last screw. Okay, so now what you want to do is hold this tight like that and flip it over. Just like so. Okay? Now let's take another look at it. Next, you want to lift this lid completely up. Remember, it separates. And don't forget about, hold this together, I will, this label right here. You may have some of this adhesive sticking. You also may have some of this film protective door right here. It's going to hang, so what happens is this button right here, when you first stick this cassette inside of a VCR, the VCR flips this up and has some guideposts that are like the two fingers here, and they pull this tape straight out and wrap it around the drum in between my fingers. That's what it's like. So flip that up. Okay, I'm going to pull this up like this, and I'm moving my fingers around the bottom down here. Okay, this door right here is probably going to fall off. And it's going to fall off from this end. It's spring loaded on this side. I'll turn that around just to show you. On this side, okay, right by my thumb. See that? So hold that the best way you can. You don't want this spring to pop out. And as you can see by its construction, it's really not too difficult to put back in if it pops out. You can see how that works. Okay, but that's the underbody of one of these. If you pull this out and you want to check it and clean the mold, you can see how that's generating and starting in there. That can, again, create audio problems and video problems. This is how you can begin to save your tapes that you purchase. Alright, so we'll put that out of the way. Alright, so here's the inner workings of the inside of a VHS tape. Going deeper into that, and there you are. Okay? It's a little too close. There we go. Alright. So, down here, I can lift my fingers and move the supply. I can pull this back. This part right here at my pencil eraser, I can pull this back just like that. Okay? And I can move this to fast forward or rewind it. Just like that. Okay? If I want to go all the way through the cassette and look up here, just like that. Or I can remove the cassette itself. But keep in mind you have a little flap right here that's plastic. This metal piece right here will come off. This one will, the plastic piece, and this chrome piece will come off as well. These pieces will easily pop off. Okay? And they're spring loaded. So be careful if you're going to remove the take up and supply spools. Okay? They have little teeth that come out that meet with these gears on each take up and the supply spool. So what you need to do on this one right here at the end of my pencil eraser, you have to pull this back and it will release those two teeth that engage in these gears at the end of each spool. Alright? So if you want to do that and do it that way, you can remove it to check the tape. And that way you can go through manually, remove this one too, and check the tape from beginning to end, if that's the way you want to do it. Okay, we'll put that back in. There we go. All right, wind that back down. Okay, so that's how that's done. You want to clean this, you can, the tape, and if it's really thick with mold, there's really nothing you can do about it. The damage is already done and eating into the magnetic film. Okay? Another reason that this would cause an issue up here with the film having an issue and getting torn was especially with rental tapes back in the day. Customers from rental shops for movies, they would just stick the tape in to the VCR. Okay, when they take it out, if either the VCR was defective in some way, there's a center light that comes up in the middle of here, okay, which tells the VCR what function and what mode to go in, fast forward, stop, and rewind. If that light gets defective and goes out, then the tape will get stuck inside the VCR. People would try to force it out and also damage the tape. They try to pull the tape out and all this different types of stuff. I used to repair VCR after VCR every single day, and they would just tear these tapes to pieces. The VCR rental place, the movie rental place used to pay $80 to $100+ per videotape movie, and they had to rent those things to make their money back numerous times. That's how that used to be, for those of you who do not know. Alright, so we've got the creasing going on and that type of a deal. You want to clean it, you can clean it, but let's say that you have, pull this back, Paul, let's say that you have a tear. You pull this out and you have a small tear in this magnetic film. And let me show you what that might be. I'll do what I can to demonstrate this with a piece of tape if I can. And I'll explain again, as I have in one of my previous videos. You have at the beginning and end, you have a clear leader. Alright? And I'll show you that anyway. I'll have to pull this stuff off. I'll unravel it and show you. It's not too terribly much of this on the spool, but it's going to look nuts, me pulling all this stuff off. I used to work in a company that made or applied movies, cartoons, to these shells. This is called a shell. The shells would come empty, and each movie they would be what would call a pancake, and they'd be just huge, wide, the size of a tire. Several of one movie. And they had them on what this metal thing, it almost looked like a Christmas tree, and you had to take it off and apply it to a machine, and in between beginning and end of each film of the same one, there was what was called a Q-tone, and the machine would pick up the beginning and end of each film, and these shells would drop down out of a conveyor belt and wind each film from that one pancake, that one large amount of film with each movie on it. Okay, here's the leader. Alright, so the leader that you're looking at is pretty thick, okay? But basically you have a smaller version of this, and this magnetic film is on here. This is your movie. Your splice tape is right here by my finger. It would be a on the machine, you'd press a button and it would come down and cut the splice tape and apply the movie onto it, and then apply the tape, and a little button would come down, and a little machine, part of the machine would come down and apply the tape and rub it on. Okay, so that's what that looks like. But if you have a tear in your magnetic film here, it will appear just like this. You have a clear leader tape here at the beginning of the take-up spool and the supply right here. Okay? So why do you have that? As I'll say again, as I did in another previous video, it's because you have a sensor inside your VCR at the beginning and end. So when you fast forward or rewind the tape, the machine will know when to start and stop. And then when you get to the end of a videotape, if you've ever wondered when you got to the end of a videotape and you're too tired, or at least we were back in the day, alright, then the VCR would stop and rewind itself. Back in those days we thought that was a neat feature. Oh, the VCR is rewinding itself. How does it know to do that? Well, that's how. The early VCRs would not do that, such as the top loaders. It would just stop, and you had to get up and rewind it yourself, unless you had that long cable that went from your hand or the coffee table to the back of the VCR. It was a long cable for the remote control. Alright, so since I pulled all this out, I'm going to cut this off and rewind it and get back. Alright, so I'm back at the front of the take-up spool. What would happen in the rental days, some of this would get torn off by people pushing and removing the videotape. I'll see if I can take some tape and put on here and create that type of issue. Not strong enough. Need some stronger tape. But anyway, I can see where it tried to do it. If I scratch on here, it can happen. Now, if I didn't want to do this, it would happen instantly. I may have just had to cut away and create the issue just to show it to you. Yeah, I'll get back to you. Okay, here's what I wanted to show you. So what I've actually done is I've went through there and I've torn the magnetic film, okay? And I also, and maybe you can see it, maybe you cannot, there's some clear that's showing, okay? It's right around my finger, but at any rate, that would stop a VCR from playing inside your VCR, and that was caused by customers playing the videotape. It would stop there, whether their VCR was defective or whatever it may be. They would pull the tape out, it would get stuck. The tape would get hung right in the center right there. They would try to get it out with their hand, a fork, whatever type of utensil, something, and it would tear, okay? So why would the tape stop inside the VCR? That would mean that that sensor that was inside the VCR, you got the left and right side, okay, that would think it was a signal to give to the VCR, to the tape, that the tape had ended. It was instructed to fast forward or rewind. But since the tape's damaged, it would just stop. That's why. And that is also the purpose of the leader on the front and back, on the beginning and end of the supply reels. Okay? So if you've got a movie, or if you've got some type of work for TV or something like that, or school, how do you do that? The only way you can do it is cut that out. You need a previous recording of your work. This is why it's always good to back it up on another cassette. So if this happens, okay, you can fix it later. Alright, so there you are. If you look close, you can see it right there, shining straight through in my pencil eraser. See that? You can see clear, shining straight through. Right there. Alright, so off to the side. So in the old days, what we did was we did the same thing. We had a backup of our work, a master. And then you had to sit there with a fade bar. And when the time came, you've got your scene coming up, you had to fade down, switch to the other tape, and then fade back up. It was generally for an intro. But if you have it damaged, that's what it was. We also had to fix cartoons, filter out old dropout and stuff like that. And that's what you're going to be doing as well if you're going to be into this sort of thing. Okay? So for those of you who have contacted me and asked questions, this is going to be the situation right here. There's only one way to do it, and it's back up your work first. Okay? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to retrieve anything. If you have a large, substantial amount of mold, then your work is lost if you don't have your work backed up previously. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to drop this back in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part and pull it back. Just like that. And you'll see it drop right in. That way these teeth on the left and right side will move the gears, stay away from the gears, and the spool can drop back in there. Okay? Okay, before you apply the top portion of this part, the shell, you're going to want to tighten up your supply and take-up spindles. And the way to do that is just simply take one and pull it just like that. It's going to tighten up. Now you're just going to see just like that, okay? Otherwise, the magnetic film is going to hang up just under this protective door. And then in fact it still might do it, but you can get away with that just by applying it just like so. You're still going to catch. You know what, Paul, let's just see if we can move this up a bit. Sometimes this pops off. It's about to. There it goes. Please don't do it. I really hate fooling with those things. I used to have to unload these things. These shells were packed to like 10 and saran wrapped. And I worked out a conveyor belt back in the day and supplied the inside room that would run the videotape. And then later on I requested for a job, load the videotape. And I did all that because every job I requested for, I wanted to learn how these things operate. I was a young man in those days. Alright, so once you've got everything in there, hold this flat, turn it over. Do not let go. Now, you can go by, hold this again, and apply the center screw. I've got a videotape mine I have to repair. It's got one of my favorite horror films on it. And this is, the leader slipped off the supply. It's a really early film from 1974 that I got to see in the theater back in '74. And the problem with that cassette, it was one of the first videotapes that was released, okay? And it doesn't have a screw at all. It's got a plastic piece that was punched in the center. So you can imagine what I'm going to have to do. It's just going to be a difficult repair. It's just not with one of your favorite films what you want to have to go through to take care and remove something like that. Some of these screws are not Phillips. In the early days they were star screws. But some of them did come with those plastic punches that tried to prevent movies from being stolen. Because what would happen with video pirates back in the day, they would make copy from VCR to VCR, alright, and take the copied tape and transfer it to the black shell of the video store. And the master from the video store, they would take it and put it in their shell so they could have the real thing. And that's why those punches were originally put right in the center. Okay, well, we've got all the screws put back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And there you go. And that's how that works. Let's see if we can give you some extra tips as far as this is concerned. Okay, the inside of a VCR, this is it, if you don't know so already. Okay, this lamp right here illuminates and is a sensor that makes everything go. Alright, so if this lamp goes out, everything is going to stop. And what would happen was that videotape, once it was in here, it would be in here inside the VCR like this. It would be loaded down in here from the carriage. And this tape right here would get wrapped around. I'll show you with my pencil eraser. So if that lamp were my pencil, it would get wrapped around that tape. And this videotape would be seated all the way down. These are guide posts. At the end of my pencil eraser on the left and right, and they pull the videotape around the drum. You have an upper drum where the video heads are located and a lower drum. This is a pinch roller here. Okay, let me see if I can get you a shot in that. Where the pinch roller is. There you go, right by my pencil eraser. You see that? That's the pinch roller. That wraps right around the capstan. And the film goes in between. Alright. So that's the operation. What also causes tape creasing? Well, these guide posts right here. You have to unscrew just a bit at the bottom of the guide post, and you have to use a spanner screwdriver that goes over the top of this. If the videotape is too high up here or too low, it's going to cause tape creasing at the top or bottom. Okay, the videotape needs to be in between this white portion right here of the guide post, otherwise you're going to have tape creasing. In addition, down below is going to be, if I can even show you, is going to be your idler. Let me see if I can show you that. This is your idler. It tells you, when you press the buttons, control buttons on the front of your VCR, it tells the VCR to play, fast forward, stop, rewind, record, that type of a thing. And that's what that does. In the early days with top loaders, this part was rubber. It would dry out and crack. Hence the name idler tire. You had to just peel it off, the rubber part, okay, and put another one on. Idler tires can be replaced by removing this washer. Don't let it pop off on you, or you'll never find it again. All right, and just pull it straight off from the top, just like that. In the old days, we had a box with a chart on the inside for different sizes of idler tires, and you just match the old one up, and it would come in just a little bit shorter, since the old one was dried up and cracked. Is what we did. All right. This one right here, later on in years, they came out with what's called direct drive, and that's what this is. Everything is mostly gears later on. And you'll see how that operates. And just turn the gears right there. Okay. I tried to get a VCR for demonstration that a long time ago, and use in my shop, one that I liked, but unfortunately, dealing with some people who don't know anything about these VCRs is a bit difficult. This is a model that I don't like, because the entire chassis in the bottom, it has screws in the bottom. You have to remove those screws to flip the entire chassis out. Okay, if you get one of these things from back in the 70s, like 1977 to a bit later, you're going to have a lot of idler tires, the rubber ones, and they're a pain in the neck to replace, because all the PC boards, all the boards rather, component boards rather, are sandwiched together like in a book form, and you really have barely any room to change them. And there's, like, I can't remember, maybe 9, 10, something like that maybe. You're going to get really irritated really fast, you know, even when you do have a lot of patience. All right. Other than that, when you're working on VCRs, you're going to need special tools. Okay. You really, really will. Let's see here. I do want to show you this. Also with crease tapes. If I can get down here. Right here with the capstan. This is the capstan right here. Okay, your videotape will go in between here and the pinch roller, which is up here. Okay, the pinch roller does roll. The capstan spins. Under the capstan at the bottom there is a belt, a rubber belt, unless it's direct drive. Okay. Usually the belt needs to be changed if it gets rubbery. Okay. If you have one of these that's eating tapes, your VCR, there can be some black buildup. That black buildup is the magnetic film from the videotape. Okay. You can run a cleaner through it, but there is no video cleaner that's going to clean that off. I used to use dental tools, metal dental tools, and you take rubbing alcohol. Okay, like this, at least 99.9%. That's strong stuff. And you lightly scrape around here, spin it around and get that stuff off. Because what's happening is you got a lump of that magnetic film on there, and it's causing the videotape to be uneven. It's also going to start eating your tape, and it will wrap the videotape at times around there and make your tape become damaged. Tape can spill out inside the VCR. You ever had that happen? That's what causes that situation. All right. So these are just some basics of what the situation could be when you're having tapes that are getting eaten, spilling out inside the machine. So if you want to give your VCR heads, which are located in the upper drum, a professional cleaning, you can do that at home, okay? But regardless of what anyone has ever told you, do not use a cotton swab. The reason for this is that the VCR heads are made of wire and ferrite material and can become damaged very easy. If you get some of this cotton swab stuck inside of there, it can be damaged, the video head that is, very, very easy. And it is almost impossible in today's times to find a whole new video drum. It has to be pulled off with a puller. It has to be screwed in on the left and right side, has a handle on it, and that has to be pulled off. And then it has to be set with an O-scope. Okay? So what do you use? Well, you use this alcohol right here, 99.9% applied to a microfiber cloth. You can get them at probably any electronics store. I'd buy them by the bulk. You'll need them for several electronic applications. VCRs back in the day had more mechanical problems than they did electronic. Today, they're probably going to have more electronic and mechanical. The parts are going to be scarce. One more tip is understand that a regular VHS cassette will not operate in a super VHS machine. This is a regular VHS cassette. It's not going to operate in a super VHS machine. It's just not going to work. So if you have check your tape. So if you have an VHS tape and you put it in a home VCR, home VHS machine, and nothing works, nothing happens, that's the problem. Okay? So there you go. Do contact me at the social media outlets provided on the screen. And remember, as always, do subscribe. See ya.